Throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right! You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio!
Hi, and welcome to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I am live here from London in England. This is 9 p.m. here, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Welcome to the show, folks, wherever you are around the world. Got a very popular guest coming on tonight. None other than the one and only E. Michael Jones, author of books such as The Jewish Revolutionary Spirit, Barren Metal, is Notre Dame still Catholic? Mike's, I think he's got about 7 or 8 books out there. We will be talking tonight. The main focus of my attention will be on the Jewish Revolutionary Spirit. I think it's never more relevant than our current time in history at the moment. And we're going to be taking some questions. I've got some questions for Mike coming up from people on Facebook as well. Mike, are you with me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mike. Yes. How's things?
Good. Good.
You've been. I've been watching some videos of you recently. You've been probably more active than ever with your interviews, if I'm correct. It seems that way, anyway.
Yeah. Well, a lot of this stuff is coming together that I talked about 10 years ago. So I think that. I have a way of explaining it that other people don't have. So, yeah, we've been getting a lot of response. I did a piece on the Pittsburgh synagogue shootings that was immediately banned, but on another site, it got close to 50,000 viewers. So, people are looking for an explanation now.
Okay, well, while we're on that topic, break down the essence of the article you did about the Pittsburgh shooting.
Well, I mean, as you probably know, man angry at the Jewish promotion of immigration showed up at a synagogue and killed 13 people. And then immediately there's this big uproar. Of course, it dies down quickly over here because there's an atrocity basically every other day here. Someone every other day just walks into a place with a gun and shoots people. And so within a week of that, an ex-soldier walked into a bar in Thousand Oaks, California, and killed a lot of other people. But that's just normal people. The synagogue is killing Jews. And as soon as you enter that area, the Holocaust comes up and anti-Semitism, and then new cries for censorship on the internet. And I addressed this in the talk that I gave. I said, for 10 years now, after the publication of the Jewish Revolutionary Spirit, I've been saying that no one has the right to harm the Jew, because that was the Catholic teaching that I mentioned in that book. It's called Sicut Judaeus Non. And that's the first part. And the second part is the Jew has no right to destroy your culture. So between the two of them, I think we could work out a peaceful modus vivendi. But point here is that I was immediately demonized for saying this as an anti-Semite. And as soon as I'm demonized as an anti-Semite now, there are operatives in places like Google that prevent your video from coming out. So there's this suppression of the ability to talk about things. And I'm saying, first of all, this probably contributed to this man's anger, okay? The inability to talk, because when people reach the point where they can't talk anymore, they start to act. And that's what happened. He's going to take everything, the whole issue into his own hands, okay? Those people that he was complaining about, the Jews who ran that immigration operation, were willing to break the law. Well, be careful what lessons you teach when you start preaching that, because other people are willing to break the law too. And I said, in addition to the fact that I got censored almost immediately by saying what I said, by saying that no one had the right to harm the Jew, I said, what lesson have the Jews been teaching? for these 10 years. And I mentioned most immediately, when I was in Tehran in May, watching Israeli snipers gun down Palestinians. Now, I said, if that's okay, and the media seemed to say it was okay, why is what this man in Pittsburgh did, why is that wrong? You can't have a double standard here. Human nature will not tolerate that double standard. Okay, and then if you add to that the whole Jewish promotion of abortion, which is also murder, and that's okay because that's women's rights, you have these people preaching what Shakespeare would call bloody instructions for a long time. And people have a way of picking up and learning these type of lessons, and they act on them, and that's leading to this, first of all, the synagogue shooting, but anyway, beyond that, this kind of epidemic of violence that is going throughout America right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is a toxic drama, which I think you, the firm, has been playing out for centuries. This relationship with the traditionally Christian West and Jewry. Obviously, I mean, Henry Ford put it very well. He said when he was talking about the Jewish takeover of the United States, he said they wanted to secularize the public schools in the nation, which is the precise word they used for it, and then fill the void with Jewish revolutionary ideas. And it really does seem that that's where we're at now. I mean, it's almost totally secularized, and we have got homosexuality, gay marriage, transgender, every depraved Jewish revolutionary idea that we could ever wish for ruling at the minute.
Yeah, well, the Jews led the secularization movement as well. It started not far from where I was living at the time, Abington High School. Schempp versus Abington High School was the Supreme Court decision that banned prayer from public schools. The American Jewish Committee, specifically Murray Friedman, who was in charge of the Philadelphia branch of the American Jewish Committee, he was the one who paid for that, and that was the great Jewish triumph. Now, the moral law is written on man's heart, okay? So there's no excuse for not knowing it, and any type of murder is against the moral law. We all know that. But the main bulwark for the moral law is religion, and the main bulwark in America at this time was Christianity. And my wife went to a public school in Philadelphia. I went to a Catholic school, but the public school at that time was full of religion. And you said prayers every day, and this taught the people to live as moral human beings. It taught them there was a higher purpose to life, and it helped them to prevent them becoming slaves to their appetites. Well, all of this was eroded over the period of my lifetime, and precisely to create people who were slaves of their appetites, because some people knew they could make money from this. The problem here is that there's always going to be violence that comes about when there's the unfettered satisfaction, when you go outside of the moral law to satisfy your appetites. And so the violence has increased apace. And all they can talk about is these superficial measures like gun control, for example. And no one's allowed to talk about addressing the basic issue. The basic issue. Why is this group of people, who granted them these privileges? Why do they have the privilege of destroying our culture? They call it tikkun olam. Okay, they're going to heal the world, but every time they use the word, it sounds to me it's like one form of moral deregulation and moral corruption. The latest example was gay marriage. Amy Dean talked about this as a big step forward for liberation. She said it in Tikkun magazine. She even mentioned the term tikkun olam. Well, Amy, we're not stupid. You can call it what you want, but we know that it's moral corruption. And we know that moral corruption is in the interest of the oligarchs because it's the most efficient way they have to control us. So we know that now. We're not stupid. We know it. We know who's promoting it. And now they're in a situation where, okay, we used to talk about free speech. We used to be in favor of it. But now that was then and this is now. And now we're totally against any type of discussion of these issues. We can have pornography on the internet 24/7, but as soon as you talk about these issues, suddenly there's all the panic and everybody's ready to shut you down. That's not a healthy situation.
Are you still there, Mike? I thought I lose you for a second.
I can hear you now.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, and so, I mean, where is this going to end? As I say, I mean, it just seems to be the process seems to be speeding up. I think you used the analogy about going to the net. All this censorship. Of course, I've had probably half a dozen of my videos removed from YouTube. People like Kevin McDonald, stuff that I've done myself, and of course, it breeds resentment. And this is surely not going to end well.
Yeah, well, not if it keeps going the way it's going. But I'm proposing a solution here. I'm not just complaining about a problem. I'm saying that there is a solution, and there was a solution, and the solution is the conversion of the Jew. Now, that's easy to say. Okay, it did happen. It did happen. Okay, if you read the book, The Jewish Revolutionary Spirit, I talk about the meeting between Rabbi Donin and the Pope at the time, Pope Gregory IX, organized by St. Raymond of Peñaforte, who was a Dominican. And the rabbi asked the Pope if he knew it was in the Talmud, and the Pope said, "What's the Talmud?" And then he told him about the blasphemy, and the Pope orchestrated a conversion campaign using the Dominicans and Dominicans like Thomas Aquinas and the Franciscans, and it was colossally, spectacularly successful. That was in the middle of the 13th century. By the middle of the 15th century, the Jews had pretty much disappeared from Western Europe. They had either converted to Christianity or they had moved to Poland, which then became the Paradisus Iudeorum. Either way, it was spectacularly successful. The big crisis in the church, in the Catholic Church right now, is that they don't feel that the Jews need to convert. The former Pope Benedict Joseph Ratzinger just published an article in Communio, Catholic magazine in German, talking about trying to square the circle here, which is basically the two principles. There's the principle that the covenant with the Jews is valid, which is based on one statement, which was made by Pope John Paul II in Mainz at a synagogue in 1980. And then there's the other statement, which has been made ever since the gospel was written, which is that baptism is necessary for salvation. Now, you cannot square that circle. Those two statements are mutually exclusive. And the problem in the church is that they've got their knickers in a twist trying to do the impossible. And this is what the Pope tried to do. And he got into trouble, and that's unleashed a big discussion in German magazines over this prospect. Because as soon as he says that the Jews need to convert, the theological establishment goes crazy, and even at this point, even attacked the Pope as a bad theologian.
Which is more likely, the expulsion of the Jews or their conversion? Do you think within the most recent sort of drama that's going on here?
I don't see any. There's no government in the world that's going to expel Jews. It's just we're way past that era.
Why not?
I just don't see. I don't see the will. It goes against everything. Beginning with Napoleon. Napoleon emancipated the Jews, and they were given equal rights, and that's part of the dogma of life in this world now. There's no way in the world. I mean, we can talk all we want here, but there's no it's impossible. We're just talking about the impossible. It will never happen. There's so many reasons I could go into, but I mean, it's just never going to happen. The only possibility is conversion, and that is a distinct possibility. It's happened time and time again. I have a book. We published a book called "The Mississippi Flows into the Tiber." It's a book of convert stories, written by John Beaumont, compiled by John Beaumont, who is in England as we speak. Okay, and it covers the story of people like Bernard Nathanson. Bernard Nathanson is the reason why abortion is legal in the United States of America. He was one of two men that orchestrated the overthrow of abortion laws in New York City. The other man was Lawrence Lader. He said at the time in his memoir that it was a Jewish movement. It was basically what he termed crazy Jews from Greenwich Village who decided that they were going to make abortion legal, and they succeeded. He also said if the country had known that it was crazy Jews from Greenwich Village who were behind this, it never would have passed. But they didn't know because no one was allowed to talk about it. Once again, no one's allowed to talk about this. And so Bernard Nathanson found that he could get full access to the New York Times whenever he wanted, as long as he was pro-abortion. But as soon as he stopped being pro-abortion, he was a non-person. Now, he didn't stop being a Jew, okay? He just stopped being the right kind of Jew, okay? And this started him thinking, and eventually it led to his conversion. Now, that's, let's talk about it from the point of view of the culture at large. If there were more of people like this, more people had converted, maybe there wouldn't be abortion. We don't know. We'll never know because of that, because the church wasn't doing this at this time. The Pope Benedict, in defending himself against the theologians, said the church has no mission to convert the Jews. Well, where did you come up with that? The church previously had a mission. When St. Peter went to Jerusalem, St. Peter was the first pope. When he went to Jerusalem, he said to the Jews, "You killed Christ." And then he said, they were cut to the heart. And then he said, "Yeah." They said, "What must we do to be saved?" And he said, "You have to be baptized." Okay, that's a mission to the Jews. Why is this pope exempt from something that the first pope established? I've already mentioned the second mission to the Jews that took place in the Middle Ages. Why are they suddenly exempt? Well, there's this mysterious kind of paralysis that has come over the church, and the net result is they're losing because they can't identify the enemy, because the enemy in every single battle of the culture wars has been the Jews, beginning in 1965, just to talk about the most recent history. 1965 is a year where the Jews broke the production code and promoted nudity on the screen. All of these things go back to there, but let's talk about beyond that. Let's go beyond that, and let's talk about Bernard Nathanson. He was a man who murdered thousands of innocent children in the womb, and his conscience was bothering him. Now, why is that? Why is that? You tell me. If it's a virtuous thing, if you listen to all these propagandists, you listen to these comedians like Miss Silverstein or whatever her name is, she brags about abortion, what a great thing it was. Well, he knew better. And there he is burdened with this guilt because of the murders that he had committed. Well, and you're going to tell him what? Oh, Jews don't have to convert, which is precisely what the priest at Notre Dame told my Jewish friend Sam Shapiro when he went there. Grateful for Notre Dame's help, he went and said he wanted to become a Catholic, and they told him Jews don't have to convert. And so, in spite of my efforts to the contrary, he left this life without baptism. Now, you cannot be saved if you refuse baptism. It's that simple. So that's why. Who's doing the Jew a favor here? Who's doing him a favor? The person who says you need to repent. You people killed Christ, but you can be saved if you're baptized, as St. Peter did, or these people who have come up with this cockamamie theological construct that is like the square circle, which says, yes, baptism is necessary for salvation, but no, the Jews don't need to be baptized. What are we talking about here? This is one of the main problems in this world right now, because the main instrument that could be bringing about the solution to the problem is missing in action, not in combat, or de combat, as the French. My point is that the Jewish identity is based on logos, the rejection of logos in particular. We are all rational creatures. The fact that we are talking right now is proof that we are rational creatures. And the fact that you're wasting your breath and I'm wasting my breath is an indication that we can change people's minds. And if you change people's minds, you could change their behavior. That is what I'm advocating. I'm advocating a fundamental change of the Jewish mind. And in order to do that, in order to bring that about, I have to explain what formed the Jewish mind. And the Jewish mind was formed by their rejection of Logos, and in particular, their rejection of the Logos incarnate, namely Jesus Christ. That has had a deforming effect on Jewish character since the crucifixion. That became their identity when they all shouted to his blood be on us and on our people. They made a solemn pact that they were going to be an alliance against Logos. That's what they were then. That's what they are today. And it's my point to say you don't have to be that way. This is a decision. You got into this because you were born into it. But the whole point of being a human being and in contact with Logos is that you can understand what caused you to be the way you are. And you can not only understand the cause of how you are, you can change. As Bernard Nathanson did change, and countless other Jews who have changed throughout the course of history, when they woke up one day and they realized, hey, I'm part of a bad operation. Israel Shamir, who did respond to this call, raised a Jew and now an Orthodox Christian, said being a Jew was like being raised by two lesbians. You wake up and you think, no, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong here. And that's what we have to address, because the world is just getting too dangerous. It's getting too dangerous because no one is able to address the problem. The Middle East is probably the classic example of what I'm talking about. Okay, why are we involved? Why is the United States, everybody's sick to death of the United States involvement in the Middle East? Those poor people are, the American people are, that's why they voted for Donald Trump. And as soon as he gets in office, what happens? He's controlled by the Jews. It happens over and over again, okay? I didn't vote for him to vote because I wanted him to support the Israel lobby. But as I told the people in Iran in May, there are three reasons why we don't have a nuclear agreement with Iran. Sheldon Adelson, Paul Singer, Bernard Marcus, three rich Jews control our foreign policy. This is intolerable. How many times do I have to say it's intolerable? How many times do the American people have to say, no, we don't want these wars? Now, apparently, the Senate is waking up. Rand Paul has now voted to put a hold on the $38 billion that the United States is going to give to Israel. Well, better late than never, but why are we just waking up to the fact that they don't need our money? Why are we giving them this money? Because they control our foreign policy and everybody is sick of it. And the only place you can talk about it is on the internet, as long as Google doesn't censor you. This is an intolerable situation. And if they keep suppressing it, it's going to become more violent. There's no other way. There's no other way. There are only two options. Either it's Logos, either we talk about it and we're allowed to change people's minds according to the moral law, according to reason, or you suppress it and people start acting out their violent impulses. That's the only two alternatives.
Okay, I've got some questions here from listeners. Sue in London said, I listened to a show of yours recently. If I'm correct, you seem to indicate that the Old Testament states or indicates that God couldn't or wouldn't become a man. And this led to many Jews rejecting Christ. For the sake of clarity, what does, if anything, the Old Testament say about the form the Messiah would come in, and why did the majority of the Jews reject Jesus Christ?
Well, if you go this Christmas season and listen to The Messiah, the great piece of music by George Frederick Handel, it is full of Old Testament prophecies of what the Messiah was going to be like. The Messiah is going to come, this promised Redeemer who's going to save the world from its own wickedness. And it's full of references to things that the Jews did not particularly like. So there's not there. The one thing that the many Jews wanted at the time of Christ was a restoration of their political power. Jesus Christ did not come to restore the political power to the Hebrews. He did not do that. He had a bigger plan. And the fact of the matter was that the Jews, certain Jews, many Jews, or even maybe the majority of Jews, did not like this plan because it would deprive them of their racial superiority. This comes out in the Gospel of St. John in the 8th chapter, where the Jews say to Jesus Christ, "We have the seed of Abraham. We have super DNA, and so God better take account of what we want and how we want God to act." And Jesus Christ just laughs at them and says, "Your father is Satan." Now, there are rabbis out there that want to ban the gospel because it's anti-Semitic. That's the type of situation we have reached, but that's the type of situation that we need to get out of as well. So the Jews rejected Jesus Christ because he didn't act. He wasn't the Messiah they wanted. And the whole point of life, I think, is to accept the Messiah on his terms rather than to demand a secular Messiah that will pander to your terms. The world is full of those people, and the Jews have fallen for every single one of them in their history.
Okay. Got another question here from Sarah in Boston. Without a temple, what is Judaism today, and who do they worship? Also, could you speak a little bit about the attempt to build the third temple?
Yes. If you're asking me whether you should place a bet on whether the third temple will be built, place a bet on it not being built, and I think you'll make some money because it's been tried before. Now, before the time of Jesus Christ, the temple had been destroyed, and invariably it was rebuilt because the Hebrew people needed a temple to fulfill the Mosaic covenant, which meant sacrificing animals. Okay, as soon as Jesus Christ arrived on the scene, he told the people that, destroy this temple and I will rebuild it in 3 days. He was talking about himself, his body. And now that Jesus Christ was here on this earth, that temple is no longer necessary, and historically it ceased to exist in the year 70 when the Romans destroyed it. It has never been rebuilt, not because they haven't tried. Okay, the main attempt came during the reign of Julian the Apostate in the middle of the 4th century after Christ. Julian was determined to overthrow Christianity after his grandfather Constantine had established it as the state religion. And he knew the Jews hated Christians and he needed them as an ally. So he decided to do, what do you guys want? I need to conquer Persia. I need your help. What do you want? And they said, rebuild the temple. He said, no problem. No problem. Why should that be a problem? And he brought Alypius, the great engineer from England, specifically to do that. Jews from all over the Mediterranean basin came. The foundations have been swept clean. They lower the first stone and flames erupt from the earth and kill everybody. Now, this is not just some type of Christian story, fable. There were 3 historians who wrote about it. One was an Arian, one was a pagan, and one was a Catholic. They all agreed that this is what happened, and there was no natural explanation for it. So if you want my advice, if you're placing bets, it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. They may try, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an abomination that the Lord just simply wouldn't tolerate. And from your little anecdote there in history, it seems that is the case. If I understand, that fire incident you're talking about occurred when they attempted to lay even the first stone.
Right. They tried to lay the first stone and fire erupted. There are all sorts of accounts. All of those people, all of the historians that I mentioned, all accepted the bet, which is basically, if the Jews succeed in rebuilding their temple, then Jesus Christ was a liar and this religion is a hoax. They came, Jews from all over the Mediterranean basin came. There were stories of women running in fear, in terror, from the foundation stone to a chapel. There's a chapel there. Suddenly a cross is burned onto the chapel and they get incinerated by this fire. So that's what happened then. Anybody thinking about building it, read those books, and you'll have a good indication of why you shouldn't do it now.
Okay, got another question here. Could you comment a little bit? This is from Jeff in Sydney. Could you talk about Cromwell's relationship with the Jews?
Yeah, the Puritans were Judaizers. You don't have to be Jewish to be a carrier of the Jewish revolutionary spirit. A lot of those chapters in that book cover the story of Christians who were tired of being Christians, in particular religious. And so the first really strong anti-Christian Jewish revolutionary movement was the Hussites in Bohemia at the time. It was led by priests and nuns who were sick of fasting and sick of the vow of celibacy and just sick of trying to live like angels on this earth. It was fostered by people who saw that the church owned 80% of the property in Bohemia, and they wanted they wanted their part of that property. This was just a dress rehearsal for the Reformation, which was basically a huge act of theft and looting. The Reformation in England had no theological justification whatsoever. None. Not one person had a theological justification. It was all just theft of church property. And that theft has stayed in the hands of those people to this day, certain families. So at a certain point, the net result of that theft was a complete discrediting of the people who were ruling England at the time. And that led to the creation of the first police state under Queen Elizabeth. Walsingham was the head of the CIA their CIA at that time. And basically, the English people were oppressed by their own ruling class because the ruling class had no moral legitimacy. And they knew it, and the only way they could preserve their hold on power was by pure force. This led to a reaction in the 17th century, which was basically revolutionary movements breaking out against the established church. The Puritans were one of them. Cromwell was one of the leaders of the Puritans. Cromwell was there signing the death warrant of the British king, along with John Milton and others. And he was, in addition to being a Puritan, a Judaizer, and whatever else you want to call him, a great general. And he conquered the Irish in a decisive fashion. The Puritan troops engaged in atrocities and war crimes at Drogheda and other places, and in a sense, it created the situation that existed in Ireland up until 1919. Okay, all of these people, when you ask them, whether it was the Hussites, whether it was the Anabaptists in Munster, whether it was the Puritans in England, when you asked them for some type of justification of what they were doing, I mean, how can you murder the king and think that that's okay? They would invariably call upon the Old Testament as their justification. In a lesser note, John Milton, Cromwell's secretary and the great poet who wrote Paradise Lost, did it himself. His wife left him. He was unhappy that his wife left him. He fell in love with another woman and decided, I'm going to divorce my wife. Well, you guys follow the Bible, right? The Bible, Jesus Christ says you can't divorce your wife. If you do, you're committing adultery. But Milton said, well, the Old Testament goes to the Old Testament. It says, well, Moses allowed it. This is the type of Judaizing that was part of every single revolutionary movement up until the French Revolution, which then took on a whole new pattern.
Okay, got another question here from Eugene in Dungiven in the north of Ireland. He says, the Catholic Church, if I understand your teaching, the Catholic Church has been the most effective way to resist the Jewish revolutionary spirit. What happened to the Catholic Church in the 20th century, sir?
Good question. Good question. What happened to the church? Let's go back let's go back to the crucial turning point, which was before the 20th century. In 1890, Civiltà Cattolica, the official magazine of the Vatican, did an analysis of France 100 years after the French Revolution and came to the conclusion that any country which turns against laws created by Christian kings will end up being ruled by Jews. Georg Ratzinger, the Pope's great uncle, came to pretty much the same conclusion in a book that he wrote, in which he said, if the church, if the Catholic Church, if Catholic politicians in places like Austria, which is where he was living, do not enforce these laws that the Civiltà Cattolica mentions, would protect the Catholic population against predatory behavior, like usury, for example, the rage will increase to the point where they will take this battle into their own hands as soon as they find a Führer, a leader. He used the word Führer, and of course,
Mike, are you still with me?
Hello.
Are you with me, Mike?
Yeah, we seem to be cutting out here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think we just lost connection a little bit, but go ahead.
So as I said, Georg Ratzinger said, the people, if the church doesn't step in and take this situation, take the Jewish question seriously and start enforcing the laws to protect the people will react, take matters into their own hands as soon as they find a Führer. And they found their Führer, and there was a violent reaction because the church simply had not been enforcing these laws. Okay, that's the problem. We're in a variation of the same problem right now. The church is simply not talking about, they've lost contact with reality, primarily because of the Second Vatican Council. The document, in particular, Nostra Aetate, Part 4 of that document, deals with the Jews, the Catholics' relation to the Jews. Okay, no matter, the document is defensible in terms of the Catholic tradition if you read it within the light of tradition. But the conventional Jewish interpretation, which got spread through things like Time magazine, which was not under Jewish control at that point, basically said the church had gotten it wrong. The church was responsible for the Holocaust, and the church should do penance now and from now until forever. The church has to break out of this self-defeating type of behavior and take control and start making a contribution to the world political situation. They cannot do it under the current circumstances. One of the things that I've been trying for a while to do is to get the Pope or someone in the Vatican, for example, to condemn the illegal sanctions against Iran. That would be a big step in making the church into a global player again. Don't see it happening, but I'm going to keep trying.
All right, got another question here from Tom in Ruislip in London. Are the Jews responsible for mass immigration into the West and the demographic changes that we've witnessed in the last 50 years, particularly?
Yes, they are. You can go on YouTube. Barbara Lanner-Spector has basically said this on a YouTube video. I could give you, I just got a lot of documentation from my German sources here, which YouTube videos, this is all going to appear in an article that is going to be in the January issue of Culture Wars. So if you want the details, subscribe to Culture Wars magazine, and you will get all of the sources that I'm talking about. I just can't read YouTube HTML over to you over the air. I'd like to, but no one's going to be able to copy it down. So there's no point even trying here. But there are plenty of sources of people, Jews, talking about the manipulation of race for what they consider humanitarian purposes, but which other people are clearly seeing as an assault on European identity.
Yeah, I mean, what is their motivation? I mean, you hear that they've got this kind of sort of good works thing going on in their attitude towards. It's very patronizing, of course, and no one requested their assistance. But I mean, is that their motivation for this, or is it revenge for anti-Semitism, like other people I've spoken to?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as I said, I have a lot of sources here in German that I could talk to you about, but I mean, the null ignatiev, the white race is an abomination, and that we should do everything within our power to keep the white race from reproducing. And the main way they're planning to do this is the introduction of multiculturalism, and flooding European countries with foreign ethnic groups. This is all me translating from the German. That will all be in the article that I'm writing here. Kevin McDonald talked about it, the United States version of this, which was the Jacob Javits law sponsored law, changing the immigration paradigms from European to a global in 1965. The point here is the Jews are always a minority in any culture where they find themselves. They always feel threatened by majority culture, and they always feel better if they can weaken that majority culture. So one way is through moral subversion. And I've talked about that in my book, Libido Dominandi. Okay, the role they played in moral subversion there. People like Wilhelm Reich. The whole social engineering of Germany after World War II, creating a nation of intellectual cripples, was all orchestrated by agencies like the American Jewish Committee that brought the Frankfurt School over and then sent them back to Germany as the social engineers that were going to re-engineer the German personality. This is all stuff that is simply part of the history that needs to be written, and I'm trying to write right now. This is the project I'm working on right now. That's what needs to come out. That's what needs to come out. They orchestrate. One of the ways they can orchestrate this weakening is by flooding areas with foreign groups. They overburden the nation. The nation goes into a tailspin, and then suddenly it doesn't function. There's no dominant culture anymore. I experienced this to some extent as a child because our family and parish was ethnically cleansed in Philadelphia. It was an Irish parish in North Philadelphia, and then when the black people crossed Lehigh Avenue, everybody moved out, and then they were blamed for this ethnic cleansing, and they called it white flight. That's not what it was. Nobody understood it at the time, but the research I did in Slaughter of Cities, Urban Renewal as Ethnic Cleansing, it became clear to me that, first of all, it was orchestrated by the black pastors, like people like Reverend Leon Sullivan in Philadelphia, who had contacts in North Carolina, and was bringing those people up at the behest of the Ford Foundation. He was on the board of the Ford Foundation. They were the people that were working for this. So if you're stupid, you can see this as a black-white conflict, because that's what it looked like at the time, okay? All these black people coming in, all these white people, Irish people leaving, okay, but that's not what it was. And that's why the whole point of this, by defining this as racial, simply does not get to the heart of what's going on. The people at the Ford Foundation were white people for the most part. Paul Ilvasacker was a white guy. He was the one who was running this whole operation. And he thought it was, to the benefit, it was integration. He thought he was doing good, but the Catholics were the butt of this thing. So unless you see it as a Catholics on the one side, Protestants and Jews on the other, with the black people as their proxy warrior, you're not going to understand it. I just told this to Cynthia McKinney. I was on a show with Cynthia McKinney, black lady, courageous black lady, who was elected to the Congress from Georgia. The black people are now waking up to it. They were proxy warriors. They've been proxy warriors for the Jews for the entire history of the 20th century. Well, let's be more specific. From the lynching of Leo Frank up to the collapse of the Black Jewish Alliance in 1967. It was the Jews using the black people as their proxy warriors. The classic example being the NAACP, okay, which is Jewish lawyers turning blacks into revolutionaries.
Yeah, I totally agree. I live in London, and it is very multicultural here. There's a lot of white flight going around, and I know black guys, and they're wise to this stuff, and a lot of them are sick and tired of being presented and promoted as victims all the time, and they reject this notion that white guys are all evil, which is encouraging.
Right. No, if the Jews love racial conflict. The Jews love it when black people fight white people because they become invisible and they use the conflict as a justification for pushing their agenda. So they love it. That's why George Soros gave Black Lives Matter $33 million. That act alone just tells you volumes about Jewish intention when it comes to racial conflict.
Okay. Well, we've got about 5 minutes, Mike, if there's anything you want to add. Have you got any speaking tours coming up, events that people can go to? I don't suppose you're planning on coming over this way, are you?
You never know. You never know. It's
because you have spoken at the London Forum previously, haven't you?
Yeah, and poor Jez is in jail right now because the Jews.
Well, Jez is out now, but he's got a lot of restrictions on him,
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was a great opportunity to speak then. I was supposed to speak for the Keys, which is the organization that Chesterton Belloc founded. You probably figured out that I'm a Catholic by the way I talk. Well, there are Catholic commissars who do not want me to speak. Now, the irony here is that these same people they're the people who are saying that Chesterton Belloc were anti-Semites. Okay, so there's a lot of irony here. There's a lot of lag in the Catholic Church. And so the short answer to the question is, I don't know. Love to come over, but I don't know.
All right, great. And Culture Wars magazine, folks, you can, you can just, that's the website, it's just culturewars.com.
Culturewars.com, or you can go to Amazon for the books. And I have ebooks on Kindle, Amazon, also available in paper. So easy to find.
Okay, Mike. Wonderful to have you on as ever.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, well,
my pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Thank you. All right. God bless.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.